So, our closing keynote today is Dr. It's fancy, Dr. Elizabeth Berryman. We can call her Liz, she said. She is sponsored by Consigne Cloud. Hopefully you went and had a chat with them today. She is the founder and director of, this is the one thing I had to do, was to ask you, how do I pronounce this? chnnl. It's not spelt properly. It's like people that have dessert first. She is the founder and director of chnnl Limited, which is a solution that helps healthcare industry identify and combat issues such as bullying, harassment, burnout and suicide. They support over 25,000 frontline workers to achieve their very best life through transforming their organisations through the power of psychological safety. In the work that I do with teams, psychological safety is one of the most critical factors when it comes to creating teams that consistently excel, and you will find it at the core of all high-performing teams. Elizabeth has a wealth of experience in the health sector, starting her career as a registered nurse in community Māori health and working in the outback of Australia before becoming a medical doctor working in psychiatry. She's got cred. That's what that means in terms of her talking to us today. So here to talk to us about what psychological safety is, how we get there and why it's important, especially in innovation, please welcome Liz Berryman.
Kia ora Christchurch, how are you doing? I believe that I'm the last speaker for today, so save the best for last. So I'd like to say thank you very much for having me. I've flown down at 4 o'clock this morning with Kels, one of the channel team members here, so bear with me if I lose my words. But today we're here to talk about turbocharging innovation through psychological safety, and I've labelled this the Tech Edition because we are here with the Canterbury Tech team. And I run a startup now, and so have delved into the world of tech. And usually if you heard my bio, I'm in healthcare. So it's been a really interesting journey for myself, and I'm going to share some of those insights today with you about how I've come from healthcare and learning about being a researcher in psychological safety and what good work looks like, and then coming into running a startup. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur, now being the CEO and running an incredible team. So I hope that you're ready to come on this journey with me. And I know that we've been doing a lot of talking today, so I'd like some participation, if that's all right. We're going to do it through the app, but I've decided, to be controversial at a tech summit, to do it a non-tech way. How about that? Since we're in real life, we're not on Zoom and we're not on Teams. So I'd love to have some participation. So, how did we feel about 2022? I don't know about you. If we're going to go from this scale over here, we're going to give the angry face a 1, and then we're going to give the bright smiley face a 5. On the count of 3, if everyone wants to hold up what your number would be for 2022. Okay, awesome. All right, so some 3s and some 4s. There's a 5. Fantastic. Did I see a 1 up there? Yeah, there's a 1 there. Yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, right? So we've had the pandemic, that was 2020. Then we thought, okay, we're coming through now, we're coming out the other side. 2022, we're going to get back on track. But in fact, we're actually still in a bit of a pandemic. We're still going through it. And I think it's just kind of time to just acknowledge that we've been through a once in a 100-year situation, and that's taken a toll on us. And it's taken a toll on our teams as well. We've heard about some fantastic innovation with Air New Zealand changing everything about how they work in this new environment. It's given us some amazing opportunities, but I don't know if you're feeling brave. Should we do it on the count of 3, 1 to 5, how you felt your team culture's been? Yeah, cool. Okay, bit of a mix around here too. So I think for some of us, for instance for chnnl, we work in this place of psychological safety, helping teams to measure, track and understand the data around their employees' wellbeing. So for us, the COVID was that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity where we actually were able to help organisations through a really, really difficult time. But for other team cultures, so say anyone working in the tourism industry or people who have been really hard hit by the pandemic, that team culture has taken a hit. In terms of healthcare, we've actually seen an advancement of innovation in the healthcare industry. So, we talked about fax machines. Well, in one day, we axed the fax in healthcare, and now we can have online prescriptions. So some things have been a 1, some things have been a 5. It's been a roller coaster. So how important is innovation to tech success or startup success? So I was going to ask for some feedback on the app, but anyone here want to shout out some things why they think that innovation is important to startup success? It's true. Is that the definition? Good point. Anybody got anything else? Why is it so important? Yep, competitive edge. Yep, finding new ways of doing things. Fantastic. And who's in charge of innovation? Is it led from the front? Is it an accelerator that's run within your program? Is it a team of people that are called the R&D team and they're set to do the innovation? See lots of shaking heads. No. Comes from everybody, right? Comes from all levels of the organisation, because those bright ideas that can give that competitive advantage, they come from even your customers. They come sometimes from the cleaner, from the admin staff, and right up to the chief execs, and even the board. So today we're going to talk about what your innovation in your team is like. And I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up for this one, but just think in your head, where are you from 1 to 5? Where do you think you are right now? Were you one of those teams that came through the pandemic with a 5 out of 5, or are you maybe in a 1 or a 2? And then where would you like to be? I hope you would all say 5 out of 5. All right, so you're going to play a little game with me. You might recognise this from a popular dating app, Tinder. So this here is a picture. If you want to yell out this tech startup. Uber? Yeah, awesome. So, what do you think about their innovation? Is this a disruptive innovation, or is it a sustained innovation? So, you're going to swipe yes or no. So, you put your hand in the air and give me a swipe of yes or no. Ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, sorry, we've flipped, aren't we? Yeah, okay. Does anyone want to say why they swiped the way they swiped? Yeah. Oh, you're not putting your hand up, sorry. Are they a sustained innovation, or are they a disruptive innovation? Disruptive, yeah. Yeah. That's right. Shall I repeat that for everyone? So there was already a business model in place, which is taxi people would come and pick up people, and then they just came in and they put in a tech enablement around that same business process. So they disrupted it, but was it a true sustained innovation? Apple. What do you think of Apple? Are they a left or a right? Yeah? You want to say why? Yeah.
I think it was a disruptive innovation because touchscreen and things like that, they used it for the way Apple thought of it for the marketing part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So they had, like, say, an iPod, and then they came with the iPhone, and now they're in earbuds, and they're doing a lot of disruption, and they've sustained that over a significant amount of time. And over an amount of leadership change, they've managed to sustain the innovation. It's not just around Steve Jobs. They were actually able to sustain the innovation through many cycles. Google. What do you guys think? Swiping left, swiping right? You want to yell out? Yeah, this person over here. You want to give me an answer, left or right? Yeah, that's sustained? Yeah, absolutely. So they came up with search engine keywords. So now it's Google it is a verb. Everyone knows what Google is. I think everybody on the whole planet probably does. So they've sustained it. Alrighty, so let's get into it. Thank you for being interactive and being a great crowd. So what my research looks at is this, the ability to bring good work, what does a good work environment look like, and what does good health, and in particular good mental health, look like, and when we bring that together, how we can unlock full potential. I think it's absolutely fantastic we followed after the previous speaker. So we all know that innovation comes from people. And people are the ones that look at the data, they can see what's going on, or they'll get really frustrated with something and go, this doesn't have to be this way, it can be different. So people are the ones that supercharge our innovation. So I would say start with people first. And I loved it with Pip, and her opening statement this morning was about the operating system of people. So what is psychological safety? There's a lot of psych this and psych that words out at the moment, and psychological safety has been around for a long time. In fact, Amy Edmondson was one of the first academics from Harvard to start talking about psychological safety. And in her TED talk, she was looking at healthcare teams. And she was looking across the different healthcare teams, and she was noticing that some teams had lower medication errors than other teams. And when she looked further, she wanted to know why those teams had lower medication errors and what was going on. She found an interesting concept, which was the teams that had lower medication errors actually had higher rates of reporting of near misses. And so she thought, okay, so they're happy to report near misses, what else is going on? She found that those teams were the ones that had something that she coined psychological safety. The ability for them to be able to speak up and question things, and for that to be received in a really good way. So for instance, if a nurse is drawing up a drug and another nurse goes, hey, actually, I think that might be the wrong amount, that the nurse who was drawing it up would say, actually, thank you, thanks for pointing that out, let's check this together and let's make sure that there's no errors. Whereas in a team with low psychological safety, the nurse who was drawing up the thing, someone else might go, oh, I don't want to call her out, I don't want to talk about it, and would let that happen, or they would call it out, but then the person would not receive that feedback and go, no, the doctor's written it's fine, I don't want to double check it. So that's the two kind of differences there. So the topic of psychological safety then got quite famous in the tech world. And Google, who we were talking about earlier, they have done several research projects, and I love it because they are so data-driven and data-focused. And they wanted to go and see what was the difference between their high-performing teams and their not-so-high-performing teams. And they found that there was this concept, again, of psychological safety. Now, I'm not going to play the video today, but if you are interested to hear about Project Aristotle, there's a fantastic YouTube video that you can watch, and it talks about the definition of psychological safety and how they used that definition called Project Aristotle at Google to drive high-performing teams. And innovation. So another example here is Team New Zealand. They innovative or not? Yeah, lots of nodding. I would say they're very innovative. So I'm going to use them as a bit of a case study. So how did it lead them to winning the America's Cup several times? Well, the first thing they did was they decided to go foiling. They decided to put their catamaran on these ridiculous aluminium foils and see if they can go faster. Now, if you learn about the team that was at Team New Zealand at that time, they actually spent about 5 years in development of these foiling. Now, imagine being the person that puts your hand up and goes, hey, I think we should give foiling a go. And their teammates had their back and they said, yeah, actually, that is a crazy idea, but let's give it a go. So they would go down to Lake Karapiro and they tried for years and years and years to perfect the art of foiling. And they nailed it. It went on to become a raging success. But did they just stop there? Did they just go, yes, we nailed foiling, we won the America's Cup, we're just going to chill out now and enjoy our success? No, they keep going. And because they build on that success, it builds that momentum and the team get used to winning and want to keep winning. So the next thing they decided to do is that they added diversity to the team. So they brought in not just sailors, but actually some Olympic cyclists to the team. And it was one of these cyclists who said, guys, the biggest muscles in the body is actually in your legs, not your biceps. So why are we grinding? We should be cycling. And of course, it took the team to be like, actually, yes, that's a crazy idea. We're going to look like kind of crazy people out there, but we're Kiwis and we're going to give it a go because we like to win. And so they converted it from grinding to cycling, and the rest is history. We won the America's Cup. So there's a lot of academics out there who study psychological safety, and I can probably talk to you for all afternoon about what psychological safety is. But there is one of the academic frameworks that I'd like to show to you today, which is around the 4 levels of psychological safety. So level 1 is inclusion. So that's where people feel safe to come to work, they feel safe to bring their whole selves to work, and to be accepted for who they are. Level 2 is learner safety. So that's when people are actually safe to learn new things. They feel like they can put their hand up and ask questions and not be humiliated or set back for that. Then there's 3 is contributor safety, where actually now they're feeling quite confident in the team and they can actually say, hey, actually I'm willing to help others out with their learning and I'm happy to contribute to this team and be a full member. And then level 4, as you can see, the innovation threshold, challenger safety. Now that's what I was talking about when you're able to challenge somebody else and say, hey, actually, let's try this new thing. Or actually, I'm happy to speak up about something that I don't think is right. So it's defined as an atmosphere where one can take chances without fear and with sufficient protection to do so. So I'm going to take you through 5 practical tips. How much time have we got left? You're good? Cool. All right, because I want to leave plenty of time for questions. Great. So, 5 tips. Number 1, we need a plan. So what I see a lot with organisations is that they want to get to level 5 psychological safety. They want to get that innovation. They want to see how they can improve that competitive edge. They want to get some new things out, products out into the market. But they don't start with a plan. So it doesn't need to be a huge, complicated strategy that's 100 pages long. In fact, it's best if it's actually only 1 or 2 pages. And it needs to be in a language that your whole entire team and even your customers can understand. And you can't take somebody else's plan, unfortunately. You can't just Google it and take it off. So you have to have it contextualised for your organisation. So what works for your team might not work for somebody else. We can get tips from other people, and I think we've heard an amazing case study from New Zealand previously about some of the tips. And I think one of the key points from your takeaway is that you actually pulled in a lot of experts from Spark and from OO and from other organisations who had done it, but they didn't just take Spark's plan, they made their own and contextualised it for their workplace. The other thing that a plan does is it keeps you accountable to it. A lot of times organisations come in and say, oh, I want you to help me fix my team's well-being, I'm seeing some mental health distress. And I'm like, we need a plan first, because if you just do a hodgepodge over here, oh, let's do a well-being workshop. We'll just get counsellors in and they can get some support there. So that's quite a hodgepodge distraction kind of approach. We need a comprehensive plan. And we can't fix it all overnight. Culture is something that takes quite a long time to embed in. And in fact, if you read Good to Great or other books, you'll see that sometimes it can actually take, years, 5, 10 years to get that culture embedded in. So if you make a plan, think long term, and then make yourself accountable to that plan. And then also be adaptable, because you never know what's behind the corner sometimes. But if you've got a plan, you can communicate that back to your stakeholders, your employees, about where you want to head with your psychological safety. Now, this is a very complicated slide, and the colours, but I'm just going to explain it to you quickly. So there's a lot of psych words out there, as I said, and one of the things that I research is actually psychosocial risks. Now, what psychosocial risks are things that you are responsible for as in health and safety. So the legislation changed in 2015 that directors and employers are now responsible not just only for the physical health and safety, but the mental health and safety of your employees. And they have gone and they have specified this as psychosocial risks. There is some best practice standards out there called ISO 45003. I know that everyone in tech knows what ISO is, so I don't need to explain that. But the ISO standards are out, and they've only just come into effect in July. So what we're seeing now is changes in the UK, in Canada, And in the state of Victoria, in Australia, where they are actually changing the legislation one step further to now include the ISO standard, some of the concepts from the ISO standard into their health and safety legislation. So this is coming, and if you don't familiar with these words now, we soon will be in the next couple of years. So I'll just quickly run through it. So how we think about psychosocial risks is the baseline, the basics of what we need to get good work right, and to have this environment of psychological safety. I kind of think of it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Maslow says that we have to get the baseline right before we can build a triangle to get to self-actualization. To get full potential, we still need to work with those basic human needs first. So I think of the psychosocial risks in the health and safety legislation as that basic baseline level. I'll run through quickly what those 6 components are that we have incorporated into Channel. So there's work design factors. Now that's pace of work, work overtime, shift work, remote work. In a startup, you can tell that sometimes those overtime hours creep in. The second one is social factors. Social factors is those interpersonal skills. That also incorporates things like bullying and sexual harassment. Then we have psychological needs and safety needs. That's things like job security, finance needs. The next one is individual factors. Now, individual factors is probably what you think about when you think about employee well-being, which are things like physical well-being, things like spiritual well-being, and things like grief and loss and family. Then there's 2 extra things that is not in the health and safety standard that we think is really, really important, especially in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And that is diversity, equity, inclusion and belonging, and something that we've called mana whenua, which is connection to the land, connection to culture, and connection to heritage. So I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that that deserves to be in that bottom baseline level. And then we can move up to the level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we can talk about some of those things in level 2, 3, and 4 further if you like, but I'd like to leave time for questions, so I'll skip through them. But the high level is that all culture, leadership, values, and esteem. We need team culture, developmental needs, career progression, and then that's when you see the full potential, when you can see creativity and innovation take place at level 4. So again, how do we get there? We need a strategy, and the other thing that we need is commitment from senior leadership. So what we have found through the research and through work through Massey University with the Workplace Barometer Survey is that there is 4 key pillars to getting there. One is it's a commitment from the senior leadership. So we're called Channel because we believe that we need a safe line from the front line to the boardroom, because everybody in the organisation is responsible for this. Another pillar of psychological safety is communication and stakeholder consultation every step of the way. If people feel like this is something that's being done to them, then they won't participate and they won't engage. But if you involve them with them, do meaningful consultation and pulse check with them at every all hands, say, hey, this is our strategy, how are we going? Give us feedback, be open and receptive and model that psychological safety, then that's how you will develop it in your team. This is just to say, you can't get to level 4 if you've got one of these building blocks that is not being dealt with. So just to give you a little bit of a story, is how I actually got involved in researching this was when I was at medical school, I experienced bullying by the hands of a senior surgeon. And I, for the first time in my life, experienced what it was like to have insomnia, panic attacks, and I was heading into depression. And just after 6 weeks of being in this toxic workplace environment with this bully, I thought, I can't do it anymore. I quit. And I went to the dean of the medical school and I said, it's me, I'm done. And to my surprise, he turned around and said to me, nope, I'm not letting you quit. I'm sick and tired of seeing our brightest people leave because of the environment and the culture that's here. It's time we fixed it. So he said, what should we do about it? I don't know. Let's do some research. So that's how I got involved in researching this. And so this is my story and about why we need to fix this baseline needs so that we can actually keep and retain our staff and unlock that potential that's within everyone. So the second tip is around looking at holistic models of health. We use the Meihana model of health, which is built on the Te Whare Tapu Whā, if people know about that. But the thing is, I like about this is to acknowledge where we are in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and to look at those wider societal factors that are going on for your team as well. Data-driven is really key, and being able to get a pulse check on what's going on for your staff is really, really important. One of the things that we're being able to see through being data-driven is we're being able to see on that triangle is a heat map, what areas are lighting up, what things do we need to actually take action on and change and put into our strategy, and what things are protective factors that we can actually celebrate and encourage and then spread to other parts of the team. So using data-driven ability to be able to make those decisions rather than just oh, I think this is the right thing to do, or I heard someone say this, but you can actually use that data to drive quality decision making. So number 6 is to take time to build foundations. It takes dedication and, as I said, that senior leadership commitment and communication. Make it fun and interactive. That classic team building. You can't beat it when it comes to building culture. This takes time, and you need to enable your people and empower your people to do this. You need to make it your own. Number 7. You'll see that any group of people, any culture that comes together, they sometimes have their own slang words or their own jargon and vocabulary that they use. This is actually a hallmark of a really healthy group. And it's quite neat. Here at Channel, I'll just give you an example. One of the ways that we build psychological safety is we're able to have meetings with the team where we can just come and talk about what's going on for us. We start all of our all hands with a highlights and a low light section. And to our team, that is like the most important thing, that they can talk about a highlight that's going on for that week and also share a low light. And being able to share that part of themselves that might be non-work related with the rest of the team is really key. They can say, actually, I've got sick kids at home this week. Can you guys help out with that? Yep, sure, happy to help out. Or, hey, a highlight for me this week is I went and learnt this thing on the weekend, and I'm going to put it in the random Slack channel so everyone can learn about it too. We also talk about things that is scaring us. And we call that at Channel spooks. So people can point at any point in time, we can have a little emoji of a ghost, and we say, hey, I'm really spooked about this. And it's a really good way to talk about things, use your own vocabulary. So say if some values have been kind of, a bit blurred, someone might put in the channel and say, hey, I'm a bit spooked. I felt that this was not aligned to our values. And so then we're able to give permission to be able to speak about things and make it safe for people to do so. And my last one is number 8. It takes a village. So using resources around to help build your village. You don't have to do it on your own. Talk to other tech companies, talk to other companies who might not be in tech, who are doing a really great job at this. Look at YouTube videos and learn as much as you can about how other people do it, because we need to celebrate those areas of strength and share that knowledge around. So a culture of innovation starts with a climate of psychological safety. And I would love to see New Zealand become the most innovative place on earth. I think that we have such a unique story to tell, and we can do tech for good. One of the highlights from 2022 was that I was able and so blessed to go on a trade mission with Jacinda to Australia. And I was just so stoked and so blown away to see how the New Zealanders are received overseas, that we have a beautiful image and a beautiful way of talking about how we want to change the world. We're known for being clean and green and leading with ESG principles. And I don't want to see us greenwash it. I don't want us to see us social wash things. I want us to see them doing it properly. I want to see us doing it with data to show the world that it can be done and that it can be done awesomely. We do it with sport, the All Blacks, we do it with Team New Zealand. I think we can do it with our tech as well. So, good work, good health, full potential. How are you excited for 2023? Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Thank you. That was great. Did everyone, I saw people wanted to put their hands up when you did the how excited are you for 2023? How excited are you for 2023? On the scale. 5s! Yeah, love Mondays. We've got time for questions. So, yeah, let's, because there's a couple in the chat, so let's have a quick chat. I love that you said it takes a village. Sometimes I say it takes a vineyard as well. That could just be me. The bar's nearly open. So, there's a couple of questions in there. How does New Zealand compare to the rest of the world in terms of our level of psychological safety in teams and organisations? Do you know?
Yeah, well, I'm on a mission to measure that. So that's what we do at Channel. We measure psychological safety, and sadly we have most of our clients overseas. Classic New Zealand startup have to go overseas. But I would love to come back to New Zealand, and I would love to get a really great measure of what's going on and then benchmark it across the world. I do have some access to some data. So last week I was in Sydney speaking at a conference with EAP providers, so that's your Employee Assistance Program. And they had some international data, and they saw that the UK and the USA was almost back to pre-pandemic mental health levels, but Australia and New Zealand were still 20% lower than our pre-pandemic levels. And the hypothesis was that we are still going through, we're a 6-month lag behind the rest of the world with what we're seeing in the pandemic. So,
right.
Yeah, I thought that was just interesting.
Do you agree with that? Do you think it is just because we're a little bit behind in that from a timing?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're controversial.
Do it, say it, be controversial.
I think the harshness of the lockdowns potentially had quite an effect on our mental health, and that we are still recovering from that. We're still building those social connections back up, and that's why I'm excited for 2023.
Yeah, nice. What was this had 11 votes. What was the outcome of the toxic environment at med school?
Yeah. So, hospital culture is changing, and I'm really excited about that. And I think that is a learned behaviour, that the environment, I don't blame any individual for the behaviours, because they were allowed to have those behaviours. It was expected of them. Maybe not to throw scalpels in the operating theatre, but I think that things are changing, and
You stayed, obviously, for a bit longer. You weren't allowed to leave.
I did stay,
yes. And
I believe that the person who was the bully has since become much better. Yeah.
Love it. Is it easy to tell if psychological safety is missing in your team? What would I be noticing?
Yeah. Okay, so we love to get the hard metrics on things, and so what you'll see is high turnover rates.
Yep.
So lots of staff turnover, and you'll also see, some people not talking to each other, or some teams that just don't gel. And you're like, okay, what's going on there? Or you'll see lots of errors happening, and you're kind of like, where there's smoke signals, there's usually fire. So looking for those signals and going, hey, there's something not quite right there, I can't put my finger on it, let's go and have a chat and see what's really going on. Yeah.
Which I think comes back to some of those other things that we've been talking about today around speaking up and transparency and empathy and understanding and all of that stuff as well. It's important to have that. Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you say to organisations that ignore bullying because the people that do it are senior and influential?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this too, where people are like, I'm like, you've got to get rid of that guy.
Yeah.
He's destroying your entire team. And they're like, he's my best sales rep.
Yeah. We talk about organisations that don't blink.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes back to that point number one about having a plan. And I would say having in that plan to talk about your values, and then not to just be wallpaper or things you put on your website, but those values that everyone in the organisation knows that this is how we operate in this company. And if these values are not being upheld, then there will be some accountability for that. I don't believe in, we won't go there because it's quite complicated, but I think that having those values in place, having everybody understand where the line is really key and critical to calling out that bad behaviour. And that's the power of data as well, is that if you do surveys, if you do use an application like chnnl to be able to measure what's going on that front line, then the data will tell you a story about what's going on for that senior person and the effect that they're having. So for instance, in a group you can say the top salesperson is a toxic employee and they're causing some behaviours. You can say that everybody else in that team with that person is a 20% lower well-being than people in another team with a great leader. And then you can show the data and go, are you happy with that? Are you happy with these people being 20% lower because of this one person? And then they go, oh, well, no, you've got those psychosocial risks. It's actually your obligation now as a director and as a leader to uphold the workplace safety and mental health.
Takes balls to don't do that. Yeah, don't blink. Love it. All right, last question. It's another popular one. In psychological safety, how does mana whenua, so the Māori connection to the land, interact with ethnic diversity?
Yes.
For example, New Zealand Indian.
Yes.
Like you had mana whenua. I'm assuming this came from the mana whenua at the bottom, at that very bottom level. So how does that interact with ethnic diversity?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with some amazing professors. One of them is Professor Jared Half from the Auckland University. And he helped us to tease that out because we find that Indigenous wellbeing is actually quite a separate concept to cultural diversity within a workplace. It's the fact that they've had marginalisation, colonisation, racism and things like that that have changed the different wellbeing needs for them, and so that's why they have their own category, whereas cultural ones come into the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not explaining it right
No,
now.
that's how you differentiate it. So the mana whenua is there because
it's the Indigenous peoples, of the land.
Right, and the other, so it fits into that other ethnic diversity. Yes, good. No, this is my brain as well. Very good. Thank you so much for talking to us today and closing us out as the final speaker. I love that. Please give a final round of applause for Liz Berryman.